All right, we're live today with a topic that I'm super passionate about, reincarnation. It's believed in many, many traditions, which I'm sure Dr. J will talk about. And I'm excited to share some of my stories of reincarnation and memories, and also with clients, how those have popped up.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
welcome back.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I wouldn't say, well, they're kind of like two streams. There's one is the flesh ancestors. A lot of our karma, it's about our karma. And a lot of our karma has got to do with that flesh channel. Our ethnicity, culture, place, the traits we share with others in our family, our flesh situation. And that's what is attracted, that's what attracts the self that reincarnates from one flesh vehicle to another. It's like in the bardo, which is the place between this life and whatever happens next, we're then attracted to something that then continues the causal chain that we are in from the life that we've just ended.
Mhm.
And thinking about what your reincarnations are, what you are, what you were in your previous life, then answers questions like, why was I born to these parents in this situation? What was attractive to this, to me, in this, what is the meaning of my life? What am I here to do? What is this path? And so I'll just give a brief description of how, as an example of how my reincarnation stories, excuse me, answer that question, and then I'll look forward to hearing your uh, stories. So for me, I remember four previous lives, but the two that I want to talk about is one in Tibet, where very briefly I'm a monk, or maybe a head of a monastery in the mountains of Tibet. We're hanging up Om Mani Padme Hum prayer flags, and here are these Mongols on small horses, and they're riding in. They've got swords, so I don't know. This is pre-gun type warfare, and they're about to kill us. And I know that they're going to kill all of us. And so I think, well, can I have a good incarnation if I'm killed by Mongol? And I decide, no, it would be too much of a karmic trap then. What would I do next if that was my death? So there's a horse, and I get on the horse and I ride to the edge of these big, these huge mountains, these cavern, this cliff. And then I get off the horse and I jump off the cliff. And then I say the mantra to myself as I go down to my death.
Wow.
In the next incarnation, I'm a monk in Japan, and I'm Pure Land. So and there's a mantra there too, which allowed me to remember that in my childhood. So when I was about 4, I can remember reciting this mantra to myself over and over again when things were difficult. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. This is this Japanese Pure Land mantra. And the story there, when I uncovered it, as I remembered it, is I've been persuaded to pilot a plane in a suicide mission to save my country, Japan, and my relatives, and so I have my beads and I have my mantra, because I've been told that all I need to be reborn into paradise, into the Pure Land, is to say the mantra at my death. So I've got my beads and I'm going down and I'm falling, and I'm seeing underneath me, it looks like either an aircraft carrier or you know, an air, you know, where people land, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Landing strip or
landing strip, something like that. And I'm over it. And as I go down and I'm starting to say the mantra on the beads, I see all these people looking up at the plane and running away. And then I realize I'm going to kill a whole lot of people. This is not good karma.
we've all been there. We've all, if you remember your past lives, we've been the good, the bad, the all of it, right?
Yeah, we've been there, exactly. And that's like I'm playing the opposite side of the previous life. In the previous life, I was the victim. In this life, in the Japanese life, I was the victimizer. I was the killer. And it was violating my vows, ahimsa, you know, non-injury. And as I go down, I'm thinking, my God, what am I doing here? You know, and I fall, and then I'm reborn into this life. And then my childhood, I was reborn then to parents who were in Germany at the end of the Second World War. And that was a real bad time, a lot of starvation, a lot of discomfort. Who came to this country, and then for my first, you know, my childhood, you know, we were, you know, they threw rocks at us and they called us names, and I was raped and they killed our dog, and because we were Germans, and those were the enemies, and we were in a neighborhood where a lot of people had lost their husbands, you know, brothers, fathers in the Second World War. So we were the enemy. I was punished, and it was self-inflicted. I chose that karma. I chose to be punished for this bad deed that I had done.
Mm. Wow.
And
Wow.
that's how it works.
That's
So
how it
the
works.
karma, and if I had not then understood it, transcended it, I mean, and it's taken me a lifetime to feel my way through it, you know, then I would have continued punishing myself in the next life. I have to come to understanding what this life is about and what my karmic mission in this life is in order to transcend it. So I've picked up the mission of the previous life to that, you know, the monk, the Tibetan monk, you know, and I've, through the mantras, I've kept hold of the Buddhism. And then in this life, I'm a Pure Land Buddhist, wanting to make paradise, help people. You know, I'm here to help people find their path. Because one of the things in Pure Land Buddhism that is important to my history and my life is that I have a clear understanding, because of the memories, I have a clear understanding that there are many paths.
Yeah.
And that we all have to fulfill ourselves. The way to end the karma is to understand it and to satisfy it. You know, to clean ourselves, to wake up. So
And that makes me think of, you know, a lot of people might believe that things, how do I want to say this? That brings an empowerment, even though, you know, so many people feel disempowered in their life. Like, why did I get this bad rap or this bad deal? But what you're saying is, and what I believe is, you know, we're choosing this.
right.
I keep thinking as you're talking of the book, The Little Soul and the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. It's a children's book, but it's an amazing book about why we, you know, without any religious, about why we incarnate. And it's to experience things, and,
Yes.
you know, whether it be forgiveness or empowerment, or, you know, in my strain of past lives that I've remembered. I mean, some are really random, and I think I mentioned them before. Like, I remember being half primate, half, this must have been way back. I've been coming here for a long time. But I was half primate, but very intelligent, to the point where we had built houses in the trees, and,
Yeah.
you know, and something came and just wiped us all out. But the first time, so I want to go back to, I didn't believe in past lives because I didn't know. Like, you know, I spent my 20s studying these different religions, self-study, and going to ashrams and going to sweat lodges and powwows and just checking everything out. Cause I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I came in this lifetime just wanting to explore. But my daughter, and I bet you probably have a story about this with either kids or grandkids, she's the one that she was like, as soon as she could talk. So she also was, very somehow intertwined with the Second World War and Germany. As soon as she could talk, 2 years old, a plane came down really low. We were on a trip, and she dropped to the ground shaking at 2 years old. She goes, "Is the war coming? Is the war coming?" And I was like, okay,
Wow.
that was my proof right there. I mean, she,
Right.
a 2-year-old who has that visceral reaction of
Yeah.
sheer terror at the
Yeah.
sound of the plane coming down real low tells me, and then just her infatuations with Egypt. I need to go back to Egypt. I remember she would just walk around. She'd go, "Why do we wear shoes? When I lived in Egypt, we didn't wear shoes." And
Yeah.
we got my cat when she was 3, and she goes, "We shall name him Egypt." And of course, he looks exactly like the black Sphinx cats in
Yeah.
Egypt. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
him. He's definitely from Egypt. And
Yeah.
and there was one other time where a tree, she was about 2 or 3, a tree had those pea pods, and a breeze came and they were blowing down, and she believed they were arrows coming to shoot her. And it just, to me, was
Yeah.
proof
Yes.
that this little soul came in with a lot of trauma, and from the last one, it was, World War II. And she's been exploring that through books and stuff. And the trauma of that lifetime really lived inside of her too.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm guessing as we, if we come back really quickly, which obviously she did, she came back real, quick,
Yes.
that trauma's, it was in her body. She wasn't a fresh new little being, pure,
Yes.
like you're saying, that she's had challenges with physical stuff because of that, all that PTSD.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean and I think the point you're making, and I think, and the point also that I want to make too is this, just as you're saying, people think of themselves as victims,
Mm-hmm.
and that then just means you're going to repeat again and again and again,
Okay.
because that doesn't give you any way out.
Right.
But if you realize that you've chosen this, so your daughter chose you,
Mm-hmm.
and she chose you for a reason, there was something about you that was the effect from a cause. So she wanted something in this life, and she picked you because she thought you would be able to give her this thing. And sometimes the thing we want, like in my case, was punishment. I wanted to be punished. So it isn't, you don't always want a good thing.
Isn't that something? So I remember one lifetime with her, and our souls are very sweet. They've been interconnected for a
Yeah.
long time. And when she
Yeah.
was little, she goes, "Oh God, last time I was the mommy, now you're the mommy." And as she's gotten older, I realized why she was saying that with such like disdain, because she's so much more mature than me. Like, I'm like literally forever a child. And she's like, "Oh, great. You're gonna," but I remember dying in one lifetime. So it was, I was on my deathbed, and that's when you have nursemaids and everyone came and took care of
Yeah.
me in the home. And
Yeah.
I remember when my soul was leaving my body, and I had a son and a daughter. Her name was Tanya, actually. I can remember the name and everything. I just thought, oh, I don't want to leave you. I mean, we're very
Yeah.
connected. It was very sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of bond and so one of the things that I've learned from it is that it's those ideas. That's like a vow. We take a vow before the bardo,
Mm-hmm.
and that then carries us through the bardo into the next life. And that vow is just that last thought. And like I had, for example, one of those, when I first gave birth, when my eldest son, and I was dying, and from bleeding to get death. And I know you had a really hard birth too. And this was, he was big, and it was a horrible long 32-hour labor and all of this, you know what I mean? And I'm hovering, my spirit had left my body and I'm hovering over the scene. I see that beautiful baby. And my first, and this is the self then that is reincarnated as opposed to the life, the ancestors, this is the self that reincarnates. And I was hovering and I said, okay, what I want to be, and I vow never to cut my hair. And what I meant by that was I vow not to hide, not to hide who I am.
Oh, that's the story of this lifetime. One of the storylines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's part of my attempt constantly. That's a constant effort,
There's a storyline, and so the more important lifetimes that I've remembered, it's a continuous story for sure. Well, this lifetime I have a lot of responsibilities and caretaking, and I got this from astrology. So I don't know if you're into astrology, but for those of you out there in astrology, I do think that it is a map of what Susan's talking about. I believe we sit with maybe some counsel, whether it's a real, I don't know. There's like a counsel and you figure out okay, so this lifetime I was a murderer. This lifetime I'm going to come in and da-da-da. And then in my past life, I was just a wild gypsy with no responsibilities, and I can see my wagon, and I just had fun and partied and just did whatever I wanted, no responsibilities. And I want that so bad again this lifetime. And it is not, it is my karma to be anchored in, get responsibility.
That's important. That's important because when you realize that, you realize what your struggle is about. And then you can end it. If you want to end it, you can end it because then you awake to it and then you can make choices, free choices, as opposed to being determined, because the karma just constantly makes you pick the same thing over and over and over again.
It's such a desire, and it feels like it's where I'm supposed to.
And then you have to figure out, okay, this is the attachment that I have to that.
Yeah.
That is, and a lot of people feel this as a divided self. And I think you do too. It's like part of you wants this and part of you doesn't want this. You're ambivalent about it. And so the train, so to speak, from the previous life is saying, party, party, party. And the one that wants to assert itself in this life is saying, no responsibility. I'm an adult now. I got to be an adult here. And that then frames your path, because it then constantly makes you think that the choices are about responsibility or partying. And that's then causes you to act the way you act in this life. And if you don't transcend it, it will continue into the next.
And for me, what I'm finding is a bridge between the two. I think I've talked about, anyone who's worked with me know I work with the Eve and Lilith archetype. Eve is the nurturer, she wears this band, and then there's the Lilith who wears the red nails and is like, no, party. And for me, I have to feed and find that balance between two, specifically because, so in astrology wise, I left Pisces, which is the sign of the party in my South node. Astrologers say Virgo is responsibility and order and structure, and that's my North node. And I had a Virgo child. So soul contract is she is here to anchor me. We've talked about that, into the responsibility and help my soul learn that, because even though my soul wants to stay in the party, I already know that. I've already experienced that. And the soul wants to continually experience something new. It wants to evolve. I mean, why do the same thing over and over? Even though it's a longing, it's kind of...
It's not just that. It's not that it's getting bored of being a child. It's that you have to, it's kind of like, the butterfly saying, well, yay, it was so much fun. I was just a worm. Wasn't that much more fun? I don't want to be a butterfly. It's like you have to evolve. You're evolving.
One more point I want to make with that too is that there's also the soul's desire, because the most prominent lifetime, and I was depressed. So the first lifetime memory I had was from working out, and I had a crush on this guy, and I there I was in the French Revolution, a rich young maiden who was beheaded, and in this lifetime I was attracted to him, but then I realized that's not attraction, that's remembering that we had something. But the most, I guess I've had so many, but one of the most powerful was, and this is the lineage. One of the storylines is that, I was married to a man and he was always gone.
Yeah.
And I had, so part of party, right, is sensuality, sexuality, expression.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that day, in this lifetime, I would get the scarlet letter really quickly. And so, but he was always gone and I was expected to stay home and cook and clean and have the response,
Yeah.
be total Eve. And so I, made a mistake. I've had a lover, I got pregnant, and I had to go into the woods and birth this baby by myself. Shame, 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 because I was supposed to just repress everything inside of me and just be a good person and
Yeah. Yeah.
and stay home while my husband did whatever he wanted to do. And so there's an evolution here, right, of like
Absolutely.
balancing that out of martyrdom and responsibility to party, and it's almost like this lifetime's a nice pendulum balance.
Yeah, pendulum balance, but it also has similar themes.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean that's what's. I mean, for me, it was like, I mean, I don't have any of those kinds of conflicts in me. I mean, I did the sex, drugs, and rock and roll when I was young. You know, what I mean, we lived in a commune and a lot of group sex, all kinds of stuff. You know, we did it all. I don't think I had no repression. You know, I didn't. For me, it wasn't a struggle one way or the other. It was more there were other issues. I was struggling on other issues. You know, I mean, I was constantly struggling about the 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 self that reincarnates is the self that does the seeing, that does the reading the future. I can see my path, so on, so on. But that self was the one that I was repressing.
I see.
Because I was thinking that is, everybody had always told me that's insanity. You're crazy. You're schizophrenic. You think that there's this other self in you that is not this life. And that is absolutely outside belief. That's impossible. That's ridiculous. I mean, so because of my education, that's all rational philosophy, reasons. And my main, I had no, mostly I was interested in hanging out with guys because women weren't intellectuals. I was an intellectual. And so for me, it was just, the part that I was struggling with was the part that wanted to deny my talents and gifts and the shaman and all that kind of stuff. Wanted to deny that stuff. So I had to.
Hair then? You've obviously evolved to be seen. That's what we're doing with this.
I know, but it's taken me. I never cut my hair. No.
That's so cool. You kept that vow. I'm proud of you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm really good at that, keeping vows. I mean, and that's part of the attraction to the particular background that I had. See, you were attracted to a chaos.
Well, yes, and lastly,
Please.
the Hawk trance, which we did in the last episode. I remember my true core. I remembered thousands of maybe hundreds of lifetimes of being a priestess.
Yes.
Where sensuality and sexuality and freedom was bad, when it was all intertwined, when that was my job. And so now that has not been an opportunity for many years. We no longer have the temples where the priestess blesses the men, blesses the men and the women, and we do the sacred dancing. And so the soul's longing was there for that lost art. That's really
that's really interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. So really, to say that it's kind of the child, it isn't really a child. It's
like Yeshua.
It's a holy thing. It's the sacred.
Yeah.
The female sacred. I mean, that's what's so interesting too about how, I mean, we have this relationship, but we're coming from very different places. Because for me, I don't have any contact with the female sacred. My contact is all all my reincarnations almost, you know, that's all male, 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 male. I was reincarnated as a female in this life, not just to punish me, but to make sure that I did not do the bad things. I mean, I'm left-handed, female, afraid of flying.
That makes sense. I did have a couple monk lifetimes, so we must have just like a little couple little blimps in history. We've been together.
I mean, but the thing is, and that's one of the things that I think people really need to appreciate, there's so many paths, and we have to figure out which one we're on, and then we can walk it. And it isn't about, okay, now I know where you're coming from, and now I'm going to persuade you that that is the wrong way to go, like some religious traditions do. This one, we're not in a religious tradition. We're in a spiritual practice, which means we're trying to help people find their path and walk it. And that's it. And if you ended up like I think I mentioned before, I knew this woman who was a whale in her previous life. Hey, that's cool.
Cool. That's
I
really
didn't say, oh my God, you weren't a human. Humans are more superior to whales. Nothing like that, right? There's nothing like that. It's like, then walk like a whale. I mean, that's, you know who you are, then walk that walk. And then you can evolve in that path and walk up your mountain. And everybody has a different mountain. Ideally, the goal is to fulfill yourself, to become who you are, to be free, to be conscious, so that when you stand in the bardo at the moment of death, you then, and like you're saying, like, and that's, I think that's a good thing to point out too, is that lots of different possibilities at that point. For you, you had a panel that would help you figure this thing out for in the past. And now recently I've run across several people who were shaman who did that, who helped people through the bardo. In a previous life, they were the kind of shaman that helped people through the bardo.
I've got so many spirits trying to talk. They're really into this one. They keep coming into my ear going,
Is there something you need to say? Is there something you want to say?
let me check, because this one's
Yeah,
really
please,
strong. Someone
please,
was over here and then someone came in,
please.
put pressure on my ear. Let me see. I'm not getting a clear message other than it's just a lot of excitement that this information is coming out.
Good.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
want to tell people there are that point, you can go to something, you can go to nothing. You can go to something with which has got the judgments, you know, you might be judged if that's how you see it.
Yeah.
And the idea is you walk the path you walk. How you see it is how it is. It's not that there is a certain way it is and you have to be sure to see it the right way. No, it's like everybody's got a different thing that happens at that place at that time. And that's why it used to be that shaman needed to help guide people through the bardo, because they wanted to go to a certain place, and then they understood from their cultural context what that place was, but they didn't know how to get there.
Is that like we're watching a Viking show, and I have a lot of I have so many questions.
Yeah.
They talk about going to Valhalla, but then like one spirit couldn't make it to Valhalla in the episode right now, and so that's their bardo.
That's
And
that's
I
right.
would really love to learn. I would love. I don't know if we could do an episode on helping people go to the bardo, because I know with my grandmother, like I don't know. I knew I could do it, but I didn't know how to do it. I think that's a lost art,
Well,
right?
actually, it's not that. I mean, you're right, absolutely. And actually, the posture that we're going to do with the Horus trance uh, can do that,
Oh, can help the people.
because that you become one possibility in that trance is to become a vehicle,
Hmm.
and then you can help somebody to another world. that you ride them. I did that with a spirit who wanted to go to a certain place. So I know how that feels. You ride them. I mean, they ride you. You become
Okay, I was right too. Okay, they ride
become a bird, and then they ride you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other question I had, because it feels like I've had, so some people believe we can reincarnate in all different cultures and all over different places all over the planet then.
Right. Right. As long as it's within our reach with respect to our karma and our awakeness. Because if you're asleep, if you don't think about this at all, you're just going la 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 through your life, and yeah, you kind of got the sense maybe they're patterns, but you don't want to think about it. Then you'll just repeat, and you'll find something like what you left, and you do it over and over and over and over again. But if you're awake, then you know you have choices, and then you can form yourself so that you can ride to the place that you want to go, so to speak. And that's the where we started with this was the podcast that we talked about dreams at the end of it, and about Ekankar and the celestial city dream. Ekankar as a discipline, what they do is they do get your spirit leaves your body, and they practice doing that. And I have to say that's a very dangerous practice. And don't do it if you don't know what you're doing, because it's really easy to not know how to come back. But they practice, because they have a technique, and I'm not going to say what it is, because if you know it, you're okay. But if you don't know it, you don't need to know it.
Okay.
But we got zinged for that previous podcast, right? But they have a way of separating the spirit from the body, the self from the body, and then they fly, and they go through then things that are like the bardo. And then when they come to death, they know how to move, and they can go anywhere they want. They know what's out there.
These people that are doing this? This
Ekankar.
Ekankar.
ECKA. I can't spell, Ekankar. I don't have it written down here. So one thing, okay, so what we're saying is that you have a choice at the bardo. Everybody has a different path. There's no one way. You go your choice. If you spend your life asleep, then you won't be free. But if you wake up, you're free. And then as you go there, you can make that choice. A vow can get you through. So my impulse, like I was saying in my story about my birthing, was when I felt death coming close, I made a vow. And the Bodhisattva vow is like that. And the mantras are like that. If you have a mantra, or like in the Tibetan tradition, the Book of the Dead, they read this to the spirit as it hovers after death. It describes how to go. And so these are ways that you can do to help yourself when you're getting close, to not just repeat. And the other thing that we're saying, I think that we can repeat, is that once you understand this life from that reincarnation perspective, you can understand the path you're walking, and then you can walk it with a clear mind and make choices.
Yes. And if only it was that simple. I mean, even as maybe for some, but for me, it's like, oh, I'm a temple sensuality priestess who lives in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, and is homeschooling and parenting. So it's like I could still make conscious decisions, but there is some. It isn't as cut and dry.
But on the other hand, what you've chosen to do, which I think is the evolution, is that you've chosen to help other women.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's a difference. Before you were helping men, now you're helping women.
Yeah.
And so once you understand that you've made this choice, then you can walk that path, and you're free of the restraints that are imposed in this culture against doing the one that you're used to.
Thank goodness for the sorting. It makes it so much easier, because the women that I initiated in the temples in the past, they're all coming back now. That's what, they're taking the New Era Academy. So it's back. The karma loop is
That's beautiful. That's
definitely
beautiful.
coming back. I want to say, when I was in the Bardo, now this was a guided, so a woman guided me in a lifetime, the one where I remembered like being a kill. It was intense. But anyways, at the end, where I was leaving my children and I was old, and it was smooth, it was a smooth transition. But I also remember the shock of the feeling of how there's no shame or guilt. There wasn't for me. So I left. I was feeling pretty guilty about, because it was I'm sure there was Catholicism, some kind of patriarch religion that was saying, oh, you're bad, you're a sinner. But I felt that, but after I died and I was in the Bardo, I was like, that wasn't true.
Yeah.
There's no shame and guilt. I felt the pureness of what it is to be spirit. And it was very informative. It was a beautiful feeling.
Yes. And you can see why some people, I want to put it in quotes, I guess, choose just to be a spirit.
Exactly. That's so true. It felt so good. It was so freeing. And it's heavy. It's heavy to be in an mammal body, for sure.
That's right.
Now, some people, I took a training years ago about how we incarnate. This, I think, goes along with what you're saying. Some people incarnate as part angelic, part fairy. My partner is very much a guardian. It feels like a guardian, Archangel Michael type of guardian spirit. So is that kind of, would that
absolutely? And that's the vow. That's pure. It's purity. You go in with a vow, and if it's pure like that, then the next life you're a guardian, or you're, like that. You come in with that orientation, and then that you can embody that, and you're the karma that keeps you separate from other spirits, other souls. It gets thin. And then you can partake in this universal.
Which we need so much right now. When I'm doing readings or guidance with women, I'm like, how can we put that in the system, right? Like the big picture is the whole, we need so much systemic change in so many areas. And it's like, how does that get put into people's path and their vow? Like, I'm vowing to help the animals. I'm vowing to help the earth. I'm vowing that I help women return to the innocence of their sexuality. I'm vowing that I change the food industry or the internet. I mean, there's so many plates. There's so many vows to be remembered out there, people. So I hope you can remember your vow. And one thing I've heard from my guides that maybe you could elaborate on is that it does feel like bliss or satisfaction when I'm following the vow.
Yes, exactly. And you can feel it. And that's, again, like in the Horus trance. You know when you're doing it because it's easy.
Easy, yes, that's it. There's a flow. I remember I did like self-help.
Easy, you still have to go a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but you're riding the wind.
Yeah.
And you're doing what you feel like you need to do.
And the
that's
doors
the place to be.
close.
That's the bliss. That's the bliss.
It's the bliss. And there's a resistance when, the ancient ones say, or the indigenous say, if you stay in your head, well, it makes more sense for me to stay at this job but then part of the sorting is probably doors will be closing. It's gonna be harder and harder to be in the illusion.
That's
and
right.
it seems like there's more flow state and the flow and doors opening and ease. I mean, even just the podcast. I mean, I didn't really have to think about it. It was part of the wind and the flight. There's so many things that just flow. Now, if I try to do something and it's hard and it's not working, that is probably not part of the story.
That's exactly it. Especially in these days. I mean, exactly. This is a special time.
It is a special time. I'm so glad you're here to teach and
Yes.
guide.
I'm so glad that you're here to get it out, because like you say, and like we say, I mean, that's my struggle, is hiding, hiding, hiding. And so I'm so lucky to have somebody like you who doesn't worry about hiding, doesn't try to hide.
I don't want to hide.
Liberating. It's liberating.
It's a good balance.
It's a good balance. Okay. All right. That's a wrap then, I think. Right?
Thank
Okay.
you so much.